Can we agree that Harden doesn't have to be the best guy night in, night out for the Sixers to be a great team?
I know you were in Philadelphia, which I do think stands out this year because they were a team, like many others at this point in the year, that were mired in controversy this point a year ago. Ben Simmons, is he going to show up for camp? Does he have a cell phone in his pocket? Doc Rivers is kicking him out. Like all that stuff. They had come off of the horrendous Atlanta loss and then the whole Doc and Embiid. And now we are a year later and you're in Philadelphia for Media Day. And the story out of Philadelphia, I can't imagine that you're going to be writing about anything other than the basketball that was being talked about and the basketball that is going to be played, which is very far removed from where we were a year ago talking about the Philadelphia 76ers and what their expectations were for the upcoming season.
You summed it up, Chris. A year ago, they were probably the most fascinating, weird team. What's going to happen? Who's Ben Simmons going to get traded for? And now it's like, what level is James Harden going to reach?
Yep.
That's pretty much the main question around the Sixers right now. And he joked yesterday saying he lost 100 pounds.
100? I lost 100 pounds.
Someone texted me yesterday. They said, was he actually serious? I'm like, no, he wasn't serious. He was joking around, being totally sarcastic. Yeah, he looked the same. But physically he did. But just because you look the same doesn't mean you're not in better condition. I buy the Harden hype. I know I've always been a Harden apologist. You and I have been on different sides of the political spectrum with James Harden. But I think this year, Chris, can you and I at least agree on this point right here? There's going to be nights where James Harden just has to be the third best player on the team because you get Joel Embiid, who very well might win his first MVP this coming year after coming so close last year. And then Tyrese Maxey, who became nearly a 20-point-per-game guy. He could only get better as well. Can we agree that Harden doesn't have to be the best guy night in, night out for the Sixers to be a great team?
Yes, I believe Maxey is going to be a star.
Yeah, you've always liked him since college.
I've loved Maxey since college, and I will tell you, one of the most shocking things for anybody out there is go look at last year's three-point percentage leaders in the NBA, and you're going to find him in the top 5. He's up there with Luke Kennard. He's up there with Desmond Bane. He's up there with Cam Johnson. He is not thought of like that. If I were going to say, hey, what do you think about Tyrese Maxey? What does he really need to improve on? I would imagine most people would say, he's got to be able to knock down jumpers. You got to be able to honor his shot. This guy was in the top 5 in the NBA in three-point shooting. Does he need to shoot it at a higher volume? Sure. But this guy can shoot.
It's playmaking now. That's what he's going to get better at this point. And he said this summer that him and Harden worked out a lot together. And I talked to those guys one-on-one. And, some of that stuff will go in the story once that's out, on the ringer. But I'm incredibly optimistic about this Sixers team. And I think you look at the addition of PJ Tucker. Granted, he's in his late 30s. That dude can still play. We saw that in recent years with Milwaukee, with Miami. Tucker can still bring it on a championship hopeful team. And this Sixers roster, on paper, you can look at some of the past teams Harden played for and Embiid played for. They played for some great teams. They did. But on paper, this team, to me, checks a lot of those championship boxes. They have the versatility in terms of how they can play different styles on the court. They can play heavy pick and roll. They can play with a little bit of movement with multiple ball handlers. They can play with your lone big inside like Joel Embiid. They can play more switchable as they have Tucker, Tobias Harris, Matisse Thybulle, DeAnthony Melton, who you had last year in Memphis. A lot of versatility on defense. They check so many boxes, and then they have the star power with Embiid and Harden with two guys. If you're facing a switching defense, they can kill you inside or outside with the mismatch that they have. It's like, to me, it's just about what level does Harden return to? He was great as a playmaker last year despite his diminished scoring ability, the lack of burst off the dribble. But if he can get some of that back, even if he's only 85% of his prime self, never mind any more than that, to me, the Sixers have the clear upside to be the favorites in the Eastern Conference.
Well, and the reason is they've got a guy who I can imagine was pretty upset about not winning the MVP last year. And
he downplayed that yesterday. He was like, I don't care about individual awards anymore. I didn't work hard this summer. I just laid on the couch all.
I think when you're talking about like the All-NBA, when you're talking about All-NBA, when you're talking about MVP, when you're talking about this stuff that is still able to give a guy that's made $100 million a chip on their shoulder because they feel like they're not getting, their just desserts. And he very well may be the best player in the NBA. It's possible. Like right now, Giannis has got that perch, and you're when you're talking about the top 4 or 5 guys in the league, whether you want to talk about Giannis, whether you want to talk about Jokic, whether you want to talk Embiid, you want to talk about Doncic. If I told you that this season, this guy is going to be the best player in the NBA, and everyone will agree that's the best player. Two-way player, dominant on the defensive end, dominant on the offensive end, peak of powers in his prime. It's not a stretch.
No, not at all.
He's the best player. If Embiid is the best, he might have been the best player in the league last year.
To me, I think he
might have been,
Is there 8 guys that you could make the argument could be the best player in the league this year? Is it Giannis?
No,
Steph,
there's not
Jokic?
8.
No, but let me just list them out. Giannis, Steph, Jokic, Luka, LeBron, KD, Kawhi, and Embiid. Those 8. Could you argue that at the end of the year, people could say they're the best player in the league? Kawhi, not so much in the regular season as much as the playoffs.
And I think that we're probably past the time with LeBron.
So maybe it's more like
I don't
6.
think he's going to be the best player. Is he still great? Yes. But are there going to be...
He did average 30 points per game last season.
They
did average 30.
They also didn't make the playoffs.
And he played the 5 while AD was out.
I got it.
LeBron had a great year. It's everything else around him that wasn't so great.
I understand.
I know LeBron is old.
He's not going to be the best player in the league, Kevin. I'm sorry.
Probably not. But I'm just putting him in that lump of 8.
Yeah.
I'd keep him there.
Probably 4 guys that are most likely.
Most likely. I agree. Most likely. But there's nobody else I'd put in that group of it.
Yeah, and so
like I love Ja, I love Tatum, I love Zion, but they're not in that group.
You're usually 26, 27, 28.
Yes, yeah.
When this stuff happens for you.
For sure.
Right? And he now...
To your point, though, Embiid's one of them. To your point.
In that perfect range.
Yes.
And I do like the guys that they've added. They were able to augment that roster. Their bench was not good enough. Mm-hmm. And so now they're going deeper. And I love Melton. And they've got Melton. And they've got Thibault. They've got Daniel House. They've got Niang. They've got Montrezl Harrell. Paul Reed got minutes for them last year. Like, you've got to just have enough
Shake Milton was their
guys.
6th man.
That's right.
Recently. He was their 6th man recently. And he's not even in the conversation for minutes right now.
Yes, these are playable guys, right? And guys that, because you're tightening a rotation once it gets to the playoffs anyway, but throughout and making sure everybody can stay healthy and getting your guys breathers so they ain't got to play 38 minutes every night, like that's where this depth can come in a massive way.